Hey co-parents, are you ready to give your hair the love it deserves? Well, let me introduce you to Nature Syrup. This is going to be your go-to for all natural hair care. And when I tell you that they also have body butters that I live by, please believe me. Their products are crafted with key ingredients that are not only socially responsible, but they're safe for your whole family. Now, whether you're dealing with kinky, coily, or curly hair, or even struggling with retention and growth, Nature Syrup has something for you. So say goodbye to all of the other generic solutions and hello to a product line that I stand by. Join the Nature Syrup family by visiting naturesyrupbeauty.com and purchase today. Hello and welcome to Co-Parenting Confessions. I am your host, Alicia Price. And before we get started, make sure you like, share, and subscribe because we want you here with us all the time. I have a very special guest with me today. And when I tell you guys, you are in for a surprise. I have a guest that is going to turn what you think co-parenting is or what you think being a single father is on its head. And today I have Brian McDaniel with me, and we're going to be talking about co-parenting in a way that you've never heard it before. So today, I'm excited to just really share like, what is co-parenting? What is the face of co-parenting? Because we assume it's one thing. So Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So first and foremost, I want to say, I think that your story is amazing. It's hilarious. It's heartfelt. It is relatable. And what would you say co-parenting has been like for you to date?
Well, I mean, I think it's a commitment.
Yep.
It's a commitment and an understanding, and you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Co-parenting, the co
Yep.
is so important, which means that you have to check your ego and really make your former partner your lifelong partner.
Yep.
And that's what's best, not just for the kids, that's what's best for yourself. You can't move on until you've moved on.
Yeah. Listen, the fact that you said make your former partner a life partner, you know how that's going to like irritate the fuck out of so many people, right? Because they're like, I want to be done with this person. So I want to back up though, because what is really important is to note how many children you have and how many mothers you have been navigating co-parenting with. And the reason I love to share this is because I really feel like this is turning the image or the idea that we have of what co-parenting is or having multiple baby mamas on its head, because we're typically seeing this from only one vantage point. And you're like, wait a minute. I've been slaying it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so to answer your question, well,
Yes.
I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm a political lobbyist.
Yeah.
I'm a college professor, but I'm also a stand-up comedian. And one of my jokes is that I have 3 to 5 kids.
Okay.
And everybody laughs, but the people who know me, they know that that is actually a very honest assessment, because I have 3 living children.
Okay.
And I have 3 wives. I have 2 boys with my first wife.
Yeah.
I have a daughter with my second wife. My current wife, we don't have children. But then I also have a set of twins with a former relationship, unmarried, who've passed away.
Okay.
So depending on how you do the math, it's 3 to 5 kids.
Yes. Wow. And what type, when you share that, what type of feedback do you get from people that might not know you?
Well, I mean, I think that it depends who I'm talking to and where I'm talking to them, because, I'm somebody who, in my profession, and I do media as well. So a lot of people know me, and if they follow me on social media, they will see that I have 2 boys and a girl. Though people who have been around know that there's also this whole other side story that is only funny in a gallows sort of way, because it was very serious and very sad for a lot of the people involved. But I believe that because I work in politics and I work in Republican politics, there is a lot of judgment there. Now, I think that as society changes, certainly now former president and soon to be President Trump has his own unique family situation. I think that that is making people have to reassess how judgy they are. But with politics, it's all about judginess. So at numerous times, I have felt very judged, and I know that it has impacted some employment.
Now, I love that you mentioned that too, because there is the judgment that comes with whether or not your family dynamic works. And you would think that that would be an area where people would have more grace. But unfortunately, they don't. Like, there's this thought of like, oh, well, you couldn't make your family work, or what's wrong with you that you're not living in the same house with your children, or that your children are seen as, living with their single mother, or whatever the case may be. And as you mentioned, with our soon to be president, his family dynamic is very different. The world has to get up to speed, right? In that family is family. And it is not about who's living in the house with you all the time. I have an extension of friends that have become family even, right? So you mentioned though that because of your family makeup and what has come to pass, that it did infect employment for you. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think there are people that would absolutely understand.
Well, what I'm speaking of specifically is that there was one instance where I was applying for a new client. So I'm meeting with a client, and because it was a client that I had a personal relationship with, I know that behind the scenes, other people who were in on the interview process definitely made a point of discussing my personal situation, and I also know that other people. Other people have brought up my personal situation when they have been, applying for jobs or seeking clients. So, everyone loves a little bit of drama. Everyone loves a soap opera, and I certainly have given them,
enough ammo.
Enough ammo there. Yeah.
So I know we're going to jump around, and because I love your story in that it's fun because you're being authentic, because you're willing to share and you're willing to say, like, you know what, I am who I am, and accept me or leave it, right? And I think that's what makes people lean in. And that's really what I've done around co-parenting. And I think why I have, had some success here is because I'm okay with saying the shit didn't work. The relationship that I thought was, gonna be this relationship forever, high school sweetheart sort of thing, that it's like, you know what? No, it's just not, it's not what happened. And sharing that has made people feel like they could connect. So tell me, because everyone doesn't know how public some of your co-parenting has been, to the point of being featured in People magazine.
Yeah. So, I kind of say that, I don't regret any of my marriages, and I don't regret any of my divorces either. I think that all of my relationships kind of lasted as long as they were supposed to. And that might not be, certainly not a traditional way of looking at it, but, my first wife was my high school sweetheart. So we were together, high school, college, and we were together 15 years and had two boys with that. And, the very end is never good. But it was a good life. And my second wife, which I have a daughter with, we were married about 8 years, and we, work in the same field. And, that lasted as long as it should have. And now I'm married, we've been together for 8 years, and we don't have any kids together. But this is great. It keeps getting better. But in between second wife and third wife, I was in a relationship that, having come out of, I married the first 2 women I ever slept with. So, I kind of told myself, Brian, you don't have to marry them all.
Right.
So I was in a relationship. It was fun. My friends, my family liked the person very much that I was dating. I don't know that I saw it as a forever relationship, but I was also kind of experimenting with, you don't have to marry all of them, or not every relationship has to be forever. But about 4 months in, we got a little surprise,
Yes.
and I should say a big surprise, um, um, where we found out that we were pregnant.
Yep.
Not just pregnant, or pregnant with twins, and pregnant with conjoined twins
Wow.
with very, very, very serious health
Yep.
problems.
Yep. That is huge.
Yeah.
And then, so the thing is, not only 4 months in, we're pregnant, and now we have health
Hmm.
concerns to talk about and work through. And what does that look like when you don't have that foundation with that person? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so the differences between, you might feel a certain way, she may feel a certain way. Did that happen for you? Were you guys always aligned on what was supposed to,
Yeah, no, not really at all. In fact,
Yep.
one of the things that we've talked about is, different types of family, and sometimes your friends are your family.
Yep.
Well, some of the first people that I told about this were actually my ex-wives, and I got a lot of support from them,
I love
both
that.
both emotional and with the other children and
Yeah.
whatnot. But where things went with what's the proper term? Shoot, the baby mama. I don't know. I
Right.
don't know what
Keep it real around here.
I
It's a
want to
bit,
be,
yeah.
obviously appropriate. But what happened there was, she had a child from a former relationship. I had
Yeah.
mine. We obviously at that time were not living together or
Yeah.
anything like that, and we'd been together 4 months, so we knew each other, but
Right.
not that much. So I and we decided that we're going to try to make this work.
Yeah.
Let's for the good of everybody.
Yep.
Let's make this work. This was supposed to happen for whatever reason.
Yes.
So let's do it. But the real complicating factor was the health issues
Mhm.
with the children. And because of the conjoined nature
Yeah.
of them, we were flying all around the country to different hospitals, seeing different doctors,
Oh my gosh.
and the doctors had different opinions on not just whether the children would live,
Yep.
but possibly that it would affect the health
Of mom.
of mom.
Wow.
And so we were in Philadelphia, which kind of has the preeminent hospital for conjoined twins, and they made it very clear to my partner that her life was in danger.
Mm.
And so and so they were really encouraging her to terminate the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Now that was not something that she was comfortable with, but had to kind of weigh the life of the children inside of her
Yep.
versus not being there for her older son and all that. And, there aren't great answers
Wow.
there. But we came back to Minnesota. We had been to Mayo, and Mayo didn't have the ability to help. Went to the University of Minnesota, and what they said is that in the state of Minnesota, you cannot, take conjoined twins
Mm.
and make sure that there are parts enough for one child to live. That is
Wow.
not something that is allowed here in Minnesota, but it was in Colorado.
Okay.
So what ended up happening is that she ended up moving to Colorado because she could get the medical care there that would allow her to let one of the babies pass,
Wow.
and then through
And save organs for the other.
yes, and
Wow.
and that was a very difficult decision. And I know that there were
Yeah.
but and because of the complexity of it, and there were times spent in Texas and
Mhm.
Seattle and Boston and Cleveland, and then back to Minnesota,
Oh my
and then
God.
Baltimore, I believe. So we ended up never being in the same place.
Yeah.
To co-parent, but obviously
Yeah.
we established paternity. Made sure that financially
Yeah.
I was participating.
Wow. That's a lot.
Mhm.
Now, and the thing that my mind goes to, though, is how much say so do you feel like you had as a father in that process?
Almost none.
Right.
Almost none. My concern was with the life of the mother
Yeah.
for sure,
Yep.
and her son. But ultimately, we never had discussions about terminating the pregnancy
Yeah.
because number one, I don't have a say in that.
Yep.
Number two, my politics and my faith and all
Right.
that were not excited about that occurring. And then ultimately, you know, with kind of the breakup of our relationship, then I really had no say in it at all. So it really wasn't a um, um, case where we disagreed on the moral aspect of it.
Right.
It was purely just, what happens if something happens to you?
Yeah. And I love that you say that too, that it's not the disagreement on the morals, because we talk a lot with families currently in the organization that I run around being on the same page around your values. And, what are the morals of your family that you're creating, right? And using those things to have a foundation, to create a foundation. And in every sense of the word, when it comes to those things, you all had that foundation. But then it came to her saying, like, hey, I'm going to go through with this, whether or not my life is in jeopardy. And that is something you would have had to live with and have had to live with the decision that she made and the outcome of that. Yeah.
And I don't want to make it sound like things went
Right.
smoothly, because
Yeah.
they didn't.
Right.
For a period of time, I did not know what my daughter's real name was.
Wow.
I've been told one thing, and it was actually something different.
Wow.
I didn't know, one of the babies passed right away. I didn't know where they were born. I mean, where they were buried,
Yep.
and all of that. And there was all kinds of um, Facebook and a lot of
Yep.
histrionics that went around that really were affecting me as a person, but also living in fear of who's is channel whatever going to end up at the
Right.
door, because I am a very minor public figure in town. So it could have been a good story, and she was doing a lot of press.
Yes.
People magazine, and she ultimately kept my name out of it, but I was not described in a very
Yeah.
good way. But I work at the Minnesota State Capitol, and I had people that I worked with who knew of the story
Wow.
but did not know my connection to it. I would eventually down the road go on dates, and people would talk about it, not knowing my connection in it. So it was something that I always felt was really important to own.
Yeah.
And so, like
Yeah.
my current wife, second date, I made sure she knew about this.
Yep.
Because this was something that if you were going to be with me, you were going to have to live
Yeah.
with this situation. And my second daughter has ultimately passed away, so it's not a current issue, but it's
Yeah.
something that I think about it every
Yes.
day.
And oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. You think about it every day. People make assumptions that men do not care or don't grieve, don't have this, intimate connection to what it is to be, a parent and to father and their children, even if you're not with them every day. There is still this longing and this yearning for wanting to know your children, wanting to be a part of their lives. And when there's a void or the absence of that, that's still there, right? Like you still feel that. And there's so many men who, for so many reasons, can't be in their children's lives because moms have made a decision and have moved, and people see them living and having fun and doing things and just assume they don't care. So what does that feel like for you when you're saying, like, I still think about it daily?
Well, and one of the words that I don't like is like single mother in a situation like mine.
Yes.
Because my first two wives,
Yep.
and the one I still live with,
Yep.
we all live in the same town. I can walk or bike, given enough time,
Yeah.
to all of their houses. So what I would say is that yes, we weren't together, but at no point in time were we ever one person doing all
Yep.
the work.
I love that.
In fact, with my three kids, I have had them 50% time their whole lives.
Yes.
So it's something that I thought was very important, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't move away. That and when I was with my second wife and we had our daughter, that I didn't do anything that prioritized them over my boys. And nobody gets divorced in a happy high five
Right.
kind of way, but I wanted to make sure to never put the kids in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm sure I didn't always succeed at that, but it was always
Yeah.
goal. And I can remember, and it's non-traditional.
Yep.
I can remember my son asking my first wife, "Are you like talking about my daughter,
Yeah.
are you her aunt? And my first wife going, there's not a word for what I am. And
Right.
people, everyone knew that we were a family.
Yeah.
And we're not a family that's going to vacation together, but we are a family where everybody can be in the same place.
I love it.
And everybody can go to sporting events and choir concerts and baptisms and eventually weddings and all of that. And that's something that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
And
you should be.
It wasn't easy,
Right.
and it wasn't maybe the best fiscal decision, but I also found that if you don't make finances the issue, you could actually talk about all the other things, which are much more easily navigated.
Yes. So I don't like the single parent label either, or single mother. I am considered a single woman. I have never been married. My son's father and I were together up until I think my son was probably 7 or 8. And even he and I have different ideas of when it would have been accurate to call me a single mom, right? Like I asked him, would you have said from day one I was a single mom? Because according to the world, I wasn't married. So I could have still been a single mom. And he's like, absolutely not. You weren't a single mom. We were together. We lived together. And so I really don't like the term because there's so much negative that follows that or comes with it. Yeah, so I love that you mentioned that. You don't call them no single mom. I was here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get to label somebody else.
Yeah.
But if I heard that, which I don't hear that much, but if I heard that, I would bristle at it because
Yeah.
I've been extremely extremely involved. But I want to give a little bit of shout out to my current wife.
I love it.
Because she is a very active parent for 3 kids that aren't hers. So I could be here tonight. She is taking my daughter and picking my daughter up from a class and all that. So she very much has been willing to take on those roles, and a very thankless role because the mothers get there is Mother's Day, there is all that stuff. There's not really a stepmom.
And she doesn't have children.
No, she does not.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
So I try as best I can to say, your daughter, because she is very much, very impactful on their lives.
I love that. I love it because having a partner, someone who is fully accepting of your life and all that comes with you, and is no matter what, I love you. This is what I'm doing. This is what I signed up for. That's just gotta feel amazing after having had these other relationships turn out to not go how you wanted them to go. When you got married or when you set out to start this relationship that you're in, this marriage that you have, based on the previous crazy, we're just going to call it crazy, what did you say I will not deal with, or what did you say I'm looking for?
In finding a new partner?
Yes. What were the red flags that you're oh, nope, can't do that. Can't have that. Don't want that.
Well, I wanted to make sure, because I had been in other relationships, some long term, and I don't know that any of them ended because of my situation, but I would say that was something that, former girlfriends, when they were envisioning their life, they were buying all of this baggage that came along with it. So, mostly it was understanding. Mostly it was someone who was going to know that this is my issue. I would like you to go on this journey with me, but I am this type of parent. I am this type of person, this type of man. And I think fortunately, money wasn't the issue that it is with some. So I didn't feel like I was depriving her of a good life because I'm paying for past relationships. But as I said, I made sure to tell her on our second date.
I love it. Because that transparency is so important.
Let her make a decision with all. In fact, I had other people who thought I was maybe too eager to tell them about it. I don't think that's the right thing, but it's something that was unique enough and messed up enough that they had to know about it.
Yeah, because you're I need you to know who I am. And you don't want to get too far into a situation with a person where then, you have feelings and then they're like, oh yeah, this is too much for me. This is baggage that I can't handle. I can't
Well,
take.
and everybody thinks that they've had a pretty messed up life, and
Yeah.
I'm always like, well,
How much?
I'm gonna win this one. Yeah,
Like,
tell me your
how
story.
about
Tell me your
this?
story. I'm gonna win this one.
Right. What's the thing that you love to shock people with about your story?
Oh, well, when as I let it unfold,
Yeah.
where I had a relationship 4 months in, find out we're pregnant, find out it's twins, find out it's conjoined twins, and, a lot of times, I don't tell it with I mean, humor would be the wrong word,
Yeah.
but it's so potentially sad,
Yeah.
I don't wanna put that on them,
Yep.
so I try to let them know it's okay to ask me questions,
Yeah.
it's okay to, you gently rib me about it.
Right.
I have to own it. There are sometimes gallows humor, but I think that it, when you look at me,
Yeah.
when you look at me,
Yeah.
I look like just a regular fat white guy from the suburbs. I get that. But I am so interesting.
Yes.
I have stories for days,
Yes.
and I'm willing to tell them.
Yep. And the thing is, as we all do, like we all have stories. We all have like really unique things that make up who we are. And the world has a tendency to really, judge us or put us in these boxes. And so, yeah, you're right. Like, look at you and it's like, oh, regular old white guy that, what could be going on with his life? And then turns out like his life is just as similar to the homeboy I went to high
Yeah.
school with, who's like, I got 3 baby mamas, no kids, no, whatever, and it's just like we're all human.
You don't know what anyone is going through. So,
Yeah.
being in politics, I hear a lot about privilege. I hear a
Yeah.
lot about, and that's real. I
Yep.
get it.
Yep.
There are systemic problems
Absolutely.
that affect people's lives and things that you've had to deal with
Yep.
that I never will be able to
Yep.
understand. But for every person who deals with systemic racism, there's somebody who has a situation like me, or an abusive parent, or an
Yeah.
alcoholic, something
I
or
was
other.
just going to ask you about that. We talk a lot about adverse childhood experiences and the things that have happened in our own upbringing that then result in the ways that we show up in relationship or what we accept into our lives. Was this at all in any way similar, your family dynamic that you've created to how you grew up?
Not at all.
Were you seeking anything in these relationships that maybe you felt like you didn't have?
I mean, I think so.
Possibly, yeah.
I think probably my litany of therapists would say that it definitely is affected by it. But my parents
Yeah.
are still together. They're both
Oh,
still alive. They've been together. I guess I'm 52, so they've
wow.
been together a really long time. But there were certainly things that I witnessed growing up, and it wasn't abuse.
Yep,
There was not
yep,
substance or alcoholism or physical abuse or anything like that. But there were things that I think definitely affected who I chose in a partner and
yep,
how I would
yep,
react to situations. And I think that I can't look back and say that I always handled myself
yeah,
appropriately, or that there's nothing that I would have done differently given the opportunity. And I think that my parents and I have a very complicated relationship,
mm,
and one that has had its ups and downs. But I've learned a lot from them, what to do and
yep,
what not to do.
yep, yep. That's so good. How have your kids dealt with what your family dynamic is? I mean, they have siblings that
Yeah.
have passed away that they, I'm sure, know about because you're very open about, your family. And then there's a set of children with your first wife. Then your second wife, you have a daughter,
Yeah.
right? Um, so how has that played out with?
Well, geography kind of kept the twins
Yep,
out of it, and the
yep,
age of my other children wasn't always appropriate for them to know
yeah,
everything that was going on.
yeah.
But I mean, I would say that the two boys are very close,
Okay.
but they grew up together 3 years apart.
Mhm.
And then there is a gap before my daughter. So, but because they have all lived in the same house, they had, I think, a very normal
Yeah.
brother-sister relationship. My daughter wants their attention all the time, and they
Yeah.
would like to not
Wait. They all grew up in the same house.
have part-time with me. So
Got you.
they would
Yes,
all
yes.
be,
Good point.
I
Good
not
point.
only had them all
Yes.
half time, I had them at the same time
See, I love it.
because I wanted them to have brothers and sisters and all that.
Yes.
So with my daughter, when she's with her brothers, she's the youngest.
Yep.
And when she's with her mom, she's, the only child.
Oh,
So that's been interesting.
yes.
She's a performer. So
That is an interesting
yeah.
dynamic. And thank you for sharing that, because I even just in this conversation lost sight of the fact that when you said that, I'm like, they grew up together. Yeah, of course. They're at halftime at dad's house. How important was it for you to make sure that you had them at the same time? Because we
Extremely.
see how difficult it is, especially in the work when we're doing parenting time agreements and things like that with families, and how hard it is for fathers to navigate when they have multiple children with multiple women. And you might have one child one weekend, the next weekend you have another. And then what that even does to a father's, time and his own self-care and mental health, that like I never have a break or any time off. I'm navigating all of these different relationships. So what did that look like for you in making that happen where you had them all
Well,
together
I
at the same
fought
time?
very
Yep.
hard to make
Yep.
sure I had that
Yep.
because, with your exposure to the
Yep.
system, the courts have very specific ideas of
Absolutely.
who should have the kids when,
Yep.
and depending on the age of the children. And, I'm an attorney. I fought against that very hard because to me, it
Yes.
was nonsense
Yep.
that they would want these kids to not be together. So with both of my first and second wife, we negotiated, essentially the parenting plan that we've always had.
Yeah.
And there isn't one. In fact, we go out as a family for the kids' birthdays. Like I will go
Yes,
out
I
with
love
the
it.
two boys and their mom,
Yeah.
and for my daughter and her mom. But I fought very hard on that. And the only time we got crossways is when the courts would insert themselves
Yep.
with their foolish ideas. But ultimately, we were able to agree to it, and we don't fight over holidays. We just don't. And because I know that I am a part of my kid's life in a very real way,
Yeah.
if they want to go to their mom's for a night, that's
Then
fine.
it's fine.
They want to have a
Yeah.
sleepover there, that's fine. If they want to have Christmas Eve at their mom's house, that's fine. I'm gonna get my time.
Yes.
And I don't want to act like I'm a part-time dad. I have them all the time.
Yeah.
They're just at their mom's house
Yep.
sometimes.
I love it. Like, I mean, so important. If you could give a tip to a father who's struggling with this exact dynamic, right? Like, I want to have both my children together, with your knowledge of having been a lawyer and knowing what to say. What is the nugget that you might give a dad who's fighting to have both of his kids or all the kids at the same time?
It seems easy to say,
Hmm.
and that's just the position I'm in. But make sure that their moms are financially stable,
Yep.
because then there isn't the incentive. And my wives have never done this.
Yep.
My wives have never done this, but where they will like keep the kids back
Yeah.
in order to make sure that you're either get more child support or that you're paying the child support
Yep.
your own. I've never had to deal with that, and there have been very real times where I have not been
Yep.
very flush with my own money,
Yep.
so that I could make sure. But because I've always had that relationship with them, and they're also established on their
Yeah.
own, that there were times where they would let me slide if I
Yeah.
needed to,
Yep.
and then make it back up when I could. And if you can do that,
Yeah.
the second thing can do or should do is, one of the greatest gifts you can give their kids is love their mom. And even if
Mm.
you're not with them anymore, love their mom. Never make it so they feel weird about bringing up their mom
Yep.
or a relationship that their mom is in.
That's so good.
Never make them be a spy for you.
Yep.
And I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say that there's not times where I've had an urge to learn about something that I'm not supposed to know about. But keeping the kids out of it will
Yeah.
make them just feel more comfortable around both of you.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. Like, love their mom, and it doesn't mean, be like, hey, I'm trying to come over and sleep with you tonight,
Yeah.
or lifetime booty call, right? That's not what it is. It's like, this person is now a part of my family, And because of them, I have you. Because of us, we have you. And you're right. They shouldn't feel like I can't bring up my other parent or I can't talk about something that is amazing that happened, and feel shamed of that because it's them hiding half of who they are. And we don't want them to do that.
Well, and also when your exes get into other relationships, see it as a positive. My first wife, had a husband, and he was much more outdoorsy than I was.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, there's someone that'll teach him to fish, teach him to hunt, teach him to boat,
Yep.
and then I don't have to do it.
Yep.
So, it's hard not to feel jealous sometimes, but see it as somebody who's helping you raise them.
Yeah, lean into the village.
Yeah.
I love that. Brian, thank you. This has been amazing. For sure, we're doing a part 2.
Part 2, part 3.
Yes, we gotta dive in a little bit more. I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to share, to just be vulnerable, and to share a new face of how we see what co-parenting is. If you could leave with a confession, I just feel compelled to ask, what's the confession about co-parenting for you? Like, if you could confess there's something I did that maybe I could have done differently, what might it be?
I with my second wife, her mother was disabled and moved in with us. I could have handled that way better. Her mother moved
Wow.
in a week before our daughter was born, and I don't know that I was accepting of the situation
Yep.
with as much humility and understanding as I could have been.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, and that is a good segue to how we talk about our part 2 and like what it has looked like for grandparents
Yeah.
to be involved.
I have so many stories. This is going to be
Whoa.
co-parenting conventions with Brian.
I love it. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me.
Thank you. I want to make sure that you guys know co-parenting is a lifelong journey, whether you're in the house together or you are not. But in the case of Brian, finding a way to work with all of the people who you have children with is essential. And the tips that he shared with us today are amazing. Make sure money is not an issue. Work, 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 and support financially because that eliminates a lot of the other struggle. And then make sure that you show love and care and concern for your co-parent because then it helps your children to feel really secure in their family dynamic. Thank you so much for tuning in to Co-Parenting Confessions. I am your host, Alicia Price. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
NBC. No relation to NBC.